Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Vanessa Mashanya. We'd like to get you up to speed right now on the latest coronavirus cases right here in Washington state. So far, the total number of confirmed cases is now 4,300. And there have been 54,896 negative tests. The number of confirmed deaths nearing 190. Taking a live look now at CenturyLink Field, right next door to us in Soto. And the transformation there has begun at the event center. Today, Governor Inslee met with military leaders alongside city and county leaders to begin preparing the building for a rapid change to become a hospital. King 5's Amy Marino has the details.
We had a lot of rumors about was the military taking over Seattle. The answer is no. They're here to help.
300 soldiers will soon transform the CenturyLink Event Center into a fully functioning hospital with nearly 150 beds, surgeons, even a pharmacy on site.
By providing medical care ranging from trauma cases to broken arms.
They will focus on cases that do not involve coronavirus.
It's going to treat people who do not have COVID-19, but it is every bit as heroic in this effort because every single person that the 627th treats is going to free up a bed for those people who do have COVID-19 in our other facility.
It's a partnership that involves the local, state, and federal agencies, including FEMA, but comes just one day after President Trump said he felt Governor Inslee had not shown enough gratitude for federal help. Governor Inslee says he does not believe support to the state has been impacted.
It hasn't knocked us off our game at all. Insults aren't going to stop us from working together.
While this might be the first spot, the governor says they will likely need more.
We know, unfortunately, that this epidemic is going to grow to the furthest corners of the state of Washington. And we have to be and are committed to building that hospital in associated capacity in every single part of the state.
The event center hosts pre-game Seahawks rallies and even events like the boat show. Now it will shift and adapt like so many others are doing during the times we live in. No longer focusing on an enemy for a football team, but one that we are all fighting together.
This is what we have to do to save lives and to get over to the other side of this pandemic.
Amy Marino, King 5 News.
So the day the hospital opens all depends on when supplies can get there. Military leaders expect they can start seeing patients within 3 days, and the hospital will be fully functional within a week. Well, today, the United States naval ship Comfort left Virginia for New York to help them battle the coronavirus there. The ship, which essentially is a floating hospital, has 1,000 hospital beds and a crew of nearly 1,200 U.S. Navy soldiers. President Trump was there the moment the ship sailed off, and he thanked the sailors, but he also made comments about potentially quarantining parts of the country, specifically the tri-state area. Take a listen.
I am now considering and will make a decision very quickly, very shortly, a quarantine because it's such a hot area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. We'll be announcing that one way or the other fairly soon.
Excluded from that quarantine, if it is to be ordered, would be truckers, so they could still make their deliveries and keep supply chains going. Again, that quarantine would be for the Northeast. But what about here in the Northwest? Well, we asked Governor Inslee whether he and the president ever spoke about any potential quarantine around Washington. And here's what he had to say.
We should be making these decisions about our travel decisions today. We don't need any political leader. I'm just calling on fathers and mothers and young people to make their own decisions, which means we need to reduce travel dramatically in the next several days. That's the first thing I will say. But in answer to your specific question, we have not had discussions with the White House nor internally about the possibility of that.
President Trump's comment today about quarantining certain hotspots also caught the governor of New York off guard. There are now more than 52,000 cases in that state. Chris Pallone has details now.
As COVID-19 infections spread, President Trump says he's considering a strict travel ban on millions of Americans in the coronavirus hotspots of the Northeast.
This would be an enforceable quarantine, and I'd rather not do it, but we may need it.
It would affect people in New York, New Jersey, and part of Connecticut for 2 weeks. The president believes people leaving the region are spreading COVID-19 to other parts of the country.
Because they're having problems down in Florida. A lot of New Yorkers going down. We don't want that.
But that announcement appeared to catch New York's governor off guard.
I don't even like the sound of it.
Legal experts say it's not clear the president has the authority to do that. And if he did, medical experts say it might not be effective.
Unless all states do it nationally, nothing is going to stop us from going from a high-risk area to a low-risk area, and it's a natural human instinct to want to do that.
The president's remarks came as he traveled to Norfolk, Virginia to watch the departure of the USNS Comfort, a hospital ship which will add 1,000 beds to New York City, which is straining under a crush of coronavirus patients.
It's like a war zone. We're in a war with very limited resources.
While much focus remains on the nation's hardest hit region, infections are already exploding across the country. Louisiana with the fastest growth rate in positive tests in the world. Los Angeles anticipating a hospital crisis like New York's in just a few days as the nation tries to slow the spread of this deadly virus. Chris Pallone, NBC News, New York.
Well, taking a live look now at a very quiet SeaTac airport, because we are learning tonight that a second TSA officer who works at that airport has tested positive for coronavirus. The first TSA agent at SeaTac who tested positive last worked Saturday, March 21st. Both officers are now resting at home. A TSA spokesperson tells us the latest worker most recently diagnosed was assigned to checkpoints 3 and 4. That officer last worked on Tuesday, March 24th. TSA issued this statement, quote, if someone believes that they may have come in contact with this officer at some point during their travels and they are concerned about their health, they are asked to reach out to their medical provider or their local public health department. And tonight we're learning more about a second wave of layoffs for employees at Seattle Space Needle. The Needle's Chief Operating Officer Karen Olson tells us that due to the prolonged closure of the Space Needle, we had to lay off our frontline team members and some of our administrative staff. She went on to say in a statement, this was one of the toughest decisions our business has had to make. She says those impacted received a transition package of more than 4 weeks of pay, paid out sick time and vacation time, as well as extended health care coverage. Washington State Senator Patty Murray had a hand in crafting the U.S. stimulus bill. She says the package includes crucial money that Americans need right now, including funding for child care.
Well, child care is really incredibly important. It's one of the things I worked very hard to get into this bill. On the education side, that will come through the Department of Education. And again, once it's signed, we'll be working to make sure it goes directly to the communities as quickly as possible. That's called oversight. That's what I'm going to be doing on my phone.
Murray says the bill limits corporations from expanding executive compensation or relief to companies owned by the president. President Trump says he told Vice President Mike Pence not to reach out to governors who aren't appreciative of his administration's efforts to slow the spread of coronavirus.
I think we've done a great job for the state of Washington, and I think the governor, who's a failed presidential candidate, as you know, he leveled out at 0 in the polls. He's constantly tripping, and I guess complaining would be a nice way of saying it. We're building hospitals. We've done a great job for the state of Washington.
Governor Inslee responded to that in a tweet, writing, I'm not going to let personal attacks from the president distract me from what matters, beating this virus and keeping Washingtonians healthy. Well, April 1st is on Wednesday, and that means rent will be due. But with the coronavirus pandemic bringing the economy to a complete halt, there are a lot of people who did not get paid this week. And a lot of them are wondering, do I still need to pay my rent? Well, Casey Decker looked at the current laws in both Washington and Idaho to answer that question.
The answer depends on two things: where you live and how you define need.
First, let's talk about Idaho, because things are pretty straightforward there. Right now, there is no pause on evictions due to the coronavirus. There are a couple of very narrow exceptions in some places in southern Idaho, but for most Idahoans, as things stand, you will still need to pay your rent on Wednesday. Okay, now over to Washington. Here, Governor Jay Inslee issued a 30-day moratorium on residential evictions, meaning if you don't pay your rent this month, your landlord can't evict you for that. But the order says nothing about pausing late fees, so you still might rack up additional debt. Furthermore, unless Inslee renews or modifies the order, once it expires, there's nothing stopping your landlord from demanding all that back pay. And if you can't pay it, there currently are no statewide protections against them evicting you. It's also worth noting that the statewide ban is only on evictions for late payment of rent, not on other violations of rental agreements. Now, in some cities like Seattle and Spokane, there are additional protections. Spokane's own eviction ban is much broader and it prevents late fees. But remember, that only applies to folks within city limits.
So if you can pay your rent, you really still should. But if you live in Washington, you won't lose your home if you can't pay, at least not right away.
Abbott Labs has announced a new test that they say can deliver results in as little as 5 minutes. And that could mean a huge breakthrough in fast, effective coronavirus testing. A test could be approved for delivery to healthcare providers as early as next week. So Abbott Labs, it's based in Illinois, but it does have offices on the West Coast. They say they have been given the green light by the FDA to get these tests out. The company claims that the test can detect negative results in 13 minutes. Positive results can come in less than 5. The Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department is encouraging people to still go out and order food from their favorite restaurants. And it wants to remind you that the coronavirus is a respiratory illness. The department says if you don't have to worry about it spreading through food, so you can still pick up your takeout. Plus, the health department's rules and regulations for food safety still apply during this pandemic. That all said, though, you should still always wash your hands before you eat your food.